Hey guys, welcome to Journey to Truth podcast. Tonight we have Tim Sandars coming all the way to us from London. It's our first guest from the UK. Tim is an entrepreneur, a researcher. He has, him and his colleague, I guess you could say, have developed a product. They have a website called Omnia Radiation Balancer.com, and they've developed a product. It's essentially a patch that you put it back on the back of your phone, and it basically, I'm going to let you go ahead and explain what it does. You would do a lot better job than I will. So
Sure.
I'm
Well,
going to
yeah,
turn it
sure.
over to you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks for the opportunity. It's great to be able to share this knowledge. And yeah, as you mentioned, we have a product that harmonizes all radiation fields. It's unique because the scientist who developed it has been studying radiation for 25, 30 years and has made a unique discovery about what it is in a radiation field that actually harms the vibration of the human cell. And so he's managed to develop a type of energy that can go into a patch that can then meet the radiation and balance it so that it doesn't cause any compromise to the vibration of the human cell. So it's just a little patch. I'll just show you. It looks a bit like that. I don't know if you can see them, but that's a bunch of patches. And then you basically peel one off, stick them onto every radiating device in your home. It lasts forever. So because the energy within the patch is never going to run out. That's a really exciting thing because we're going to probably come on to this a bit later, but this is the precursor to many free energy and perpetual energy solutions on the planet.
Yes.
Just from the use of this tiny little unit of energy, which the inventor has discovered and is now deploying to be used in many different replacements for electricity, shall we say. So,
Nice.
so yeah, that's what we do. We do a number of tests on our product. We do one test, which is a muscle test, which is something that I've done maybe 500 times. And every time we stick the patch on the phone, people go super strong. A muscle test is where you test through your body's electrical signals or its nervous system, how strong you are. And then you put a phone in your hand and you'll see the difference in strength in the human body because it gets electrically compromised by the incredibly strong radiating phone. And then we put the patch on and the body goes super strong. And then we do a test on water as well, where we put the phone next to water and we irradiate the water for 5 minutes, making a phone call, and then we put it under Dr. Emoto's tests to look at the crystalline structure of the water, and it comes out with perfect crystals, which is the sign of perfectly balanced water. So we know that we've transmuted the radiation field from something that was imbalanced into a perfectly balanced structure. And then the last test that we've done so far, but we've got some more on the way, is on my blood. Where after 20 minutes of watching a video on a mobile phone, and this is bad news for all you gamers out there or anyone that spends a lot of time watching video, for example, after 20 minutes of watching a video on a mobile phone, all my blood sticks together. And that's called Rouleau syndrome. And Rouleau syndrome is not a disease per se, but it represents electrical imbalance in the blood, and also it makes the blood harder to get through the capillaries, for example, and harder for the oxygen to get to it, and that sort of thing. So it's a precursor to disease because it represents stress. So those are the 3 tests that we've done, and we're doing more. We're doing one on heart rate variability and another one on DNA, and so yeah, we can provide all of those test results to anyone.
Yeah, and that's so amazing. It's so important right now. I know a lot of people use different stuff, organite patches for their phone, organite pyramids, organite pucks, all that stuff.
So it's really important that first of all you know that what you have works, because there's a lot of products out there that that make big claims, and also a lot of people get kind of romantic about the idea that crystals can save everything. But as I know, if you put your radio frequency meter next to a phone, it goes completely crazy. The levels are off the charts. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember the first phones that came out. They made such a noise that you just knew that they weren't good for you. No, the old Nokias or whatever, they used to jump off the table with all the vibration.
Yeah.
You know, so they spent a lot of money, the big phone companies, to make that really quiet, so you never see or hear any of the kind of offensive vibration that's coming into contact with your human body. And as I'm sure we'll get into a bit later on, because I'm going to tell you a bit more about the electrical current in the human cell, what happens with radiation from phones is that the electrical field of the phone meets the electrical field of the body. And that's why there's this clash. That's why there's this, what we call dissonance. And dissonance is obviously, you know, where something is not vibrating optimally. So, so these phones, you've got to, you know, are incredibly powerful. And I do test a lot of, you know, orgonite and other crystals and so on. And they're good for airborne radiation, but putting them on a phone, which is super, super powerful, you need something that's going to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can you put these, you can put these on other devices too, like your microwave or any other, like computers, laptops. It works for all that, correct?
Yeah, and this is the news that we have, which is that, and this is backed up by all the scientific reports, which is that all radiation fields, man-made, I should be very clear about this, all man-made radiation fields are not good for the human body. They are imbalanced. So it really just depends on, I'll come back to what imbalance means, but it really depends on three factors. You got proximity, as in how close it is. Is it in your pocket or next to your head? Exposure. So how much of the day are you putting it next to your head or in your pocket or holding it or whatever? And then thirdly is the strength of the signal, which we've just covered a little bit, which is incredibly strong. And it's going to get stronger as we move from 4G into 5G, right? Which is, you know, a very dangerous situation. So everything's radiating. Microwaves are obviously radiating quite strongly, but you don't stick your head in a microwave. Well, I hope you don't. But yes, you can put a sticker inside the microwave, and that will balance all the microwave radiation fields within the oven. So that's good news. You know, TVs are the same, but you don't, you know, you're not right next to the TV all the time. And the important thing is that radiation decreases significantly with distance, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's called the inverse square law. So that it reduces significantly with every meter that that there is between you and the radiating device.
Well, and this radiation is also, it's like, I know just from my own research, it's damaging to our DNA. Like you said, it causes a lot of stress. It can give people headaches. They won't know why they're having all these headaches. Even the smart meters on our homes, or you probably even put one of those smart meters, maybe, if you know what that is. I don't, over here, it's just it's a meter that the electric companies put on your house. It's supposed to be better, more efficient, but actually what it does is causes every device in your house to be more harmful for you in a sense. I don't exactly know how it works.
It's off a lot of radiation. Yeah.
I've seen people hold the radio frequency meter next to the smart meter, and it goes, you know, the readings go off the charts. And that's, like I said, that's one of the three factors, is the strength of the signal. So smart meters, tablets, watches, you know, phones, obviously, your Wi-Fi router, all of these things are radiating very strongly. And yeah, I understand that there's a big push as part of 5G to get everyone to have smart meters and to make it non-negotiable. You know, you can't even decide not to have one, which is, you know, insane. You know, our choices are being removed for the sake of, I don't know, there's a bit of a green push at the moment over here with Extinction Rebellion and everything else to push you into smart meters. But the crazy thing is that those smart meters are going to bring all of this toxic radiation into your home. So, you know, it can still be argued whether smart meters really do, you know, improve your carbon footprint or your greenness. But one thing is for sure, they're bringing a lot of imbalanced toxic radiation fields into contact with the human body. And you mentioned before that, you know, the effect on DNA. Well, there's lots of effects, proven effects of wireless radiation from phones and laptops and so on, which was previously looked at as non-ionizing. But what I'm here to tell you is that the ionizing versus non-ionizing debate is not the right debate in this situation. And that's quite big news, right? Because previously, when we never had radiating devices in our pockets or next to our heads, the only time we came into contact with radiation was through things like X-rays, right?
Yeah.
You know, and then they realized that X-rays create so much heat that they break chemical compounds and shake an electron off an atom, for example, in the what we would term as the old model of the atom, which I think we're going to come on to because you know, all of our science is based on this new idea of what the atom is and how it behaves, which is really, really fascinating. But in the old physics, ionizing radiation was so called because it shook the electron off the atom and therefore caused immediate damage to the body, and they could measure that. And everything that didn't do that was classified as non-ionizing, therefore safe. Right? But what's happening with non-ionizing radiation is that over time it's causing disease, right? So it doesn't shake the electron off immediately, but over time, rats that are exposed to radiation, and only very small, you know, amounts of non-ionizing radiation, are developing everything from endocrine damage to DNA strand breaks to infertility to cancer, heart rate malfunctions, cognitive impairment, you name it, they get it, because it affects them, as it does us, on a vibrational electrical level, right? So it's not to do with heat per se, although heat is a factor if a phone were to be as hot as an X-ray, for example, which it isn't, that's for sure. But what does happen in the electrical field of a phone, for example, is that it brings into direct contact with your body a lot of imbalanced electrical fields. And because of the law of resonance, right, and this is really important because every cell in our body has electricity in it, therefore we're walking around like a giant electrical antenna, right? I'm walking around as something that is literally responding to everything all the time. I respond to sunlight, I respond to a hug, I respond to good music, I respond to the food that I'm eating, you name it. You know, we're responding to it all the time. And the same thing happens with bad stuff, right? With car fumes or, you know, toxins or phone radiation. So what happens is, and this is the best analogy that I can give, if you imagine I've got two guitars, right? And they've got 6 different strings, all in different frequency bands, right? Because they're different notes. If I hold the 2 guitars together and I pluck one of the strings, on the other guitar, the same string starts to resonate, right? Because it's in the same frequency band, right? So that's what happens. It's called sympathetic resonance. And the same thing happens with the human body, because the human body is radiating too as an electrical device. We are radiating and we're walking into an imbalanced radiation field. We pick up that imbalance and then we absorb it in our body. And that is the precursor over time to disease. Not immediately. It's not going to shake the electron off the atom straight away, but ultimately over 10, 15, 20 years, and let's face it, we are in the middle of this experiment because it's never happened before. We've never had radiating devices in our pockets or next to our heads before. So this is a giant experiment, and it's really important that people start to understand the context here, which is, I'm here to tell you that we are electromagnetic beings, or we are electrical beings. You know, every cell in our body has and is electrical current. So that's my message today, is to get people out of the biological view of their body for a moment. You know, it's also true, we are also flesh, blood, and bones. Yes, we are a bunch of minerals and, you know, calcium, magnesium, you know, all sorts of other things. We are the biological description of ourselves, but we are also 100% energy, frequency, and vibration, in the famous words of Nikola Tesla. And we need to start thinking of our bodies in those terms right now, because we are being bombarded with a whole load of energy, frequency, and vibration, which our body doesn't like.
So that's so beautiful. It's nice to see somebody that's developing something that understands this aspect of it, because that's where most scientists, a lot of people, or even researchers, are kind of missing the boat. But there's two things, like you said, we're electric, and we're going to get into the whole the electric universe and the atom, like you said. But something I wanted to go back on, you were talking about rats being tested. When we talked before, you were telling me how they test the humans for this stuff. They don't actually test humans. They're testing a dummy, essentially, with fake blood. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that was totally fascinating. I didn't know anything about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can put some pictures in as well about this, which I can send you.
Totally.
Yeah, so basically, because mainstream physics has decided that only ionizing radiation is bad for the human body, what they've done is devised a test where they've simulated a human body, and then put a phone next to the simulated human body, and then put a sensor inside the simulated human body to see whether any heat went from the phone towards the sensor. And so they've built this plastic model of a human being, right, with plastic skin. And inside that, they've put what is basically constituting fake blood. It's a mixture of salt and sugars and other things, which I'm sure they've spent a lot of time trying to get as near to blood as possible. But there's no brain in there. There's no electrical signals going on in that body. There's nothing, you know, and to call that a proper test, when, as I've mentioned before, there's 10,000 tests. In fact, there's probably even more, but I'm just going to say 10,000 to be on the safe side. There's 10,000 tests on live animals, which are showing that, you know, when the live animal has a heart and electricity running through its body, that electricity gets compromised by phone radiation or wireless radiation, right? So to test on a dummy with plastic skin and fake blood and no heartbeat and no brain and whatever, and just to see, oh, did the phone transmit any heat into that? And also, as we've mentioned before, heat is kind of the wrong, it's the misnomer, it's not the right thing to measure in this situation. Then that is the only test that they do for our safety. That is the only thing they do. That's the only thing they recognize.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
So we're saying that people need to know this and kind of get a little bit outraged by it, right? Because, you know, we need to take responsibility for this. And just to be really clear about this, my position on phone radiation and everything else is that we created it, right? Me and you. You know, we all are responsible for this. It's not a situation where we point the finger at the big telcos or the big handset manufacturers and go, oh, you've been doing this to us. We asked for it, right? I asked to speak to you over in America on, and be able to record this and put it on YouTube for the world to see. We all asked for that. We demanded it because we love it. We love the data. We love the connectedness. So we've all collectively got to raise these concerns, understand them, but not point fingers, help the people and the corporations to see the light so that we can actually make this situation safe.
Yes, I love that. You're right, because we essentially signed up for it just by buying a phone, Like you said, we want it. Everybody craves it, and now we're addicted to it. And it's a real problem, and that's what this is about. So I know, so we talked about that product. I know you guys are in the middle of developing some other products, but before we go into that, since we didn't do this, do you want to give a little background of yourself and how you even got involved in all this and who you're working with? Because I think that's a key.
Sure.
Factor in all this.
Absolutely. Yeah. I used to live in Singapore, and while I was there, I was working with some healers, alternative healers, and they got me into this, the understanding of the human body as an electromagnetic or a light body, within, the understanding that we were both flesh and bones and electricity stroke light. So I used to work with Qigong healers and that sort of thing. And they introduced me to products that were harmonizing radiation. And this was, 3 or 4 years ago. And so they introduced me to all the tests that you could do to show that the body reacted in an adverse way, and then to show that the body got better. And fast forward about 2 years after that, and I found myself at a conference all about, lots of sort of save the world type themes, like free energy, like, the pyramids in Bosnia, like, animal preservation, biodomes, that sort of thing. And I went to a talk by a guy called Dr. Ilija Lakicevic, or Laki as he calls himself. And he was talking about free energy, and halfway through he just said, oh, and by the way, I've got the solution for all radiation problems. Not just radiation from phones, but also nuclear radiation and all that sort of thing. So I was immediately interested in that, and I asked him afterwards, what have you got? And he showed me his product, and then I went back to London and tested it the way that I knew I could, like through doing live blood samples on myself, taking it to a couple of kinesiologists. They were like super impressed. And we obviously had his water crystal photography test as well. So I did all these tests on it, and I was just like, right, well, I'm going to build a brand around that, because I knew how important it is to every single person's health. Every single person watching this needs to know the information that I'm sharing, because I've taken 2 or 3 years to kind of learn it. And, through good people like yourself, I'm grateful to be able to share some of that knowledge. But I operate on behalf of this scientist who, since I understood how he actually created his solution, which is inspired by none other than Nikola Tesla, in the way that he actually manifests or creates and manifests his solution using conscious energy, and also dialing into the spirit realm to bring in solutions to all of today's big problems, of which there are many, electrical current being one of them, nuclear waste being another. We could go on and on. So when I got to understand his science, and then how his science could also bring in a new era of energy, I was like, wow, this is super exciting. But I also realized, just as exciting as it is, there's also an awful lot of resistance to it in the physics world, or just in people's understanding of what is possible. A lot of people look at our patch that goes on the phone, and they just think, well, it's just a dumb patch. You're selling magic beans or something. And we say, well, actually, no, it isn't, because when you look at the constitution of every atom, every atom is alive. It's a spinning ring of energy. It's a spinning ring or current, electrical current that spins around a 0-point field that is inside the middle of that atomic field. So Dr. Lakicevic, or Laki, has just issued his paper, which is all about the true concept of the atom. Now, that's kind of a big thing, right? Because the atom is the building block of everything in the material universe, everything in our lives. And if he can prove that the old model of the proton, neutron, electron, and nucleus, if he can prove that actually that is no longer the right model, that actually the model is this, and it aligns very nicely with a lot of the other thinking that's going on at the moment around the electrical universe, quantum theory, people like Nassim Haramein. It aligns very nicely with what they're saying, and might even fill in quite a few blind spots for them. So, in my ideal world, we'd have all of those real kind of like inspiring geniuses talking to each other, figuring it all out and working out how to, produce a new blueprint for energy solutions in our world, which were not based on generation, extraction, payment, right? Which is what every single energy system is. And that is effectively a slave system. It's basically master of energy and slave, right? You want energy, come get it off me and come and buy it, and now you're my slave, effectively. Yeah. So
and that's why they took Tesla out, because they're like, wait, we can't charge for this, we can't have that. There
you go. So there's that I don't know whether it's urban myth, but it pretty much summarizes the situation where Tesla was asked, well, where do we put the meter? So we can charge people. And there's always these double meanings and double entendres and spelling of words and so on. So how can we charge people? And he says, well, you don't. It's meant to be free for everyone. And then suddenly,
they're like, nope.
he's run out of town, right? He's ostracized, and all his ideas are stolen. And this grid gets put in place, which is all about us taking the energy off the system, and it's gone, and then we pay for it, and then we're in that loop, right? We can't get out of it. Everyone knows that expression. I go to work to pay the bills. Well,
you're working to survive, basically.
They've got you.
Just live on the planet.
And it's the same in electricity as it is for fuel and gas as well. So, there's many scientists that are out there that are looking for solutions that challenge that old model. It's a dangerous game. It attracts, the worst side of the corporations, shall we say. But it's really important for us if we want to survive, if we want to be a bit more harmonious with the planet, and that's the only way to go, in my book. I'm sure your listeners will probably agree.
I definitely agree. 100%.
So what other, if you want to touch on it, I know you guys were developing some other products you were telling me about. I don't know if you're at liberty to talk about those yet.
Sure. So I guess before I get into that, I should probably tell you what it is that we're working with, right? Because that's quite exciting. I haven't quite mentioned that. And I think there's two things that I need to probably mention just to sort of fill in all of the gaps. But one of them is the true concept of the atom, and explaining that a little bit more, because when you understand that, then you understand why, you understand the importance of balance within every atom, every cell, and the whole of nature. And then secondly, there's this new unit of energy that Laki is working with. And so, yeah, we can talk a bit more about that, because obviously it could be construed to many people as just a fairy tale. But if he actually produces something and it works, then we have to say, well, it's real, you know.
Yeah.
I guess it would make more sense if I just quickly covered what his concept of the atom is.
Yeah.
And then we can go on to because it makes more sense to do it that way around. You know, we mentioned that proton, neutron, electron, nucleus has been the model for many decades. So what he's found is that inside every atom, right in the center of the atom, is a still magnetic point, right? So if you imagine that the atom is a circle, then right in the middle is this still magnetic point, which he calls the 0 point, right? It's important that it's magnetic because around that magnetic point flows a current of light or electricity, right? And what he's done is he's measured exactly how that electricity flows around that centering 0 point. And what it does is the electricity dives into the 0 point to pull out the energy from the magnetic point to spin. And then it follows two phases. It compresses itself into matter, which is the matter in this human body, these books, you know, this table, right? Every atom, right, does the same thing. The difference between my body and this table is that I have a mind to move my body around, right? Yeah. I'm also an organic being with an awful lot of divine intelligence in my body, right? And an example of divine intelligence for me, very simple, is my fingernails are growing right now. Yeah. I don't tell them to grow. They just do. There's an operating system in my body that operates on divine intelligence, right? And same thing for my hair, same thing for the way oxygen comes into my body and is used in my body, right? That is all, you know, some kind of intelligence that I'm not in my mind responsible for, right? So that leads us on nicely to the fact that if every atom is dialing into that 0 point field to pull out the energy to spin, and that divine intelligence comes out with that spin into that atom, then it follows that that 0 point field is kind of the creator field, and it's kind of the God field, right? That is the, you know, the source of all of the laws of creation. You know, very few people come out with 4 arms. You know, there are laws, there are rules, there's cycles in nature. There's ways that things grow. There's ways that things procreate. All of these things are following laws and intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. So it's Laki's theory, and you know, it's a convincing one, that's the source of all life, because all life is electrical current. Therefore, it is the God field. You know, the connected 0 point field that's inside every atom is kind of the etheric field that gives birth to all life. And we as mental beings are operating a body that's been given to us by this creator, and we're able to do lots of things with it, right? We can decide what to have for lunch, or we can go and build a bridge, right? You know, or we can make music, or we can, you know, this is our gift. We can go and experience whatever we are here to experience, right? And so back to the way that the atom works, the light ring dials into the magnetic 0 point to make itself, and then it just discharges itself into the ether, right? In rapid succession. So it's making itself, discharging itself, making itself, discharging itself in so fast that you can't even see it, right? So that's what's happening inside all of our cells, inside every atom, the atoms on the wall, the atoms everywhere, but at different rates of energy, vibration, and frequency, right? Yeah. So that's what's happening in the electrical universe. Everything is electrical current. spinning around that magnetic 0 point in the middle. And so that's his revelation. He's just published a paper in an international journal which explains all of the tests that he's done to prove that, so that it's not just some romantic notion. It is backed up with evidential proof. So we can point people, your listeners, to that if they wish to have a look at it, if they're into quantum physics and so on. So that is important, because the centeredness of the 0 point within the donut, and the light spins around that 0 point in a torus field, right?
Yeah.
In a donut shape. And the importance of the centeredness of that 0 point in the middle, that represents good health and effectively balance, and therefore love, right? Mm-hmm. And what he's found is that in a radiation field, what happens is, if you draw a radiation field as a circle like that, then the 0 point actually moves around and doesn't stay in the center, right? Yeah. Yeah. And so that becomes like an agitated energy field. And when we said earlier on about the two guitar strings, well, imagine that's the guitar string of the human body, and that's the guitar string of the radiation field. Well, because this is in the same frequency range, this starts to agitate, and this starts to agitate too, right? So that becomes, the human cell becomes uncentered. And that's why we see the effects in the blood where Rouleau syndrome is caused, right? It's an electrical compromise of the human cell. And I can supply pictures of that so that you can show your audience too.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. There's much more to it than that, but that's me translating his work so that it, I hope, makes some sense to your audience.
Well, it does, and this isn't the first time that we're hearing this stuff. We've heard we've heard other whistleblowers and people come forward, like Corey Good, talk about the electric universe, and essentially the template for all creation, like the 5-star template. We have 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, and that's why other depicted ETs are described very similarly to us, because it's all the same. It's all the same laws of it that it has to abide by. So it's definitely something that we're going to start hearing more and more of, and it's really exciting. And it's just exciting to have you on talking about this, because I think it's gonna land well with the audience. A lot of people are gonna like. Yeah, they're gonna like.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, no, as I said, the more we share this information, the more we have a kind of collective awakening, and then we can all dial into what the truth is, which is that we are all one. If we all do see ourselves as these kind of gifts from a creative field, where we have a mind that can come in and operate things, and we're grateful for that experience, then lots of things sort of disappear. Lots of programs that we've been asked to believe start to disappear, whether it be in physics or religion or politics or wars, for example, that are waged, where actually we start thinking, well, actually, hold on, we are all one. We're all part of this unified field, and that will hopefully give us a bit of a mind shift into something a bit more harmonious, which I'm sure everyone would like to see.
Oh yeah.
But shall I talk a little bit about the Deca technology as well? Because I was going to come on to that after I explained the atom, if that's of interest.
Please do.
Well, you need. I want definitely do that, because I was telling you last time we talked. We hear about all this stuff. We talk about it, the electric universe and everything, and it's so nice and refreshing to have someone like you coming forward and breaking it down for us and painting a real picture, so we can understand this in a way that's tangible for us to really apply to our lives.
Well, it's a great pleasure. I'm just the messenger, really. I saw that this was important, and I decided to dedicate a lot of my life to finding out about it. And I'm not really much of a scientist. And secondly, kind of evangelizing about it as well. So, yeah, it's great. I think it's really exciting for me, and I hope that that's coming across, and that other people will get excited as they have done. In when I speak at other things. So what Lackey, the inventor, has found is he was a top research professor in physics, and then he had a kind of an awakening, right? He had an awakening where he basically started to question everything that he'd been taught, and then he also had an awakening where he started to dial into the spirit realms, very much like Tesla did, who's the inventor of absolutely everything, and ask questions about whether all the concepts were right or not. And that led him to understand the true concepts in science, and the atom is just one of them. He's got concepts of gravity, where electricity is the obvious one, magnetism as well. But he also was able to see through his clairvoyance this tiny, tiny unit of energy that was popping up everywhere, that came into our atmosphere in, I think it was around about the sort of 2000s. In line with what you're probably aware of is the age of Aquarius, moving away from the age of Pisces and into, which was the era of, male dominance, ego, wars, conflict, duality, blah, 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 and into Aquarius age, which is supposedly the feminine age of grace, harmony, compassion, and all those good things. So he started seeing all these tiny units of energy, and then he inquired what he's meant to do with it, and he realized that he could magnetize. These tiny units of energy responded to magnets. So he'd go into the hills in Serbia and capture them, and then he realized that he could program them through the 0-point field with specific instructions to do certain functions, right? So that's what we've got in our patch. Our radiation balancer is we've got a set of instructions that meets the imbalance of the radiation field and sets it to a balance, right? But it's through this Deca technology, and this Deca is effectively, if you can picture a dodecahedron, which is a 12-sided cube, and the 12-sided cube has 6 pairs of spinning cones of energy inside it, right? So 6 pairs of opposite each other, so 12 cones in all, facing inwards to the center point. And because that energy is spinning around the cones, it never runs out, right? So it's a unit of energy that can be deployed to perform new functions, and it is our slave, right? So it is our slave to be programmed by our minds to do what we want it to do, whether it be to turn on a light switch or to balance radiation. But according to Lackey, it can be used to do anything. Drive, it could run cars, airplanes, everything, because this unit of energy never runs out. And electricity, by the way, is just a combination of light and heat running down a copper wire. It's nothing more than that. So this dodecahedron structure, which is, has the same properties, can be equally powerful. So the next product that he's working on is a temperature control unit, which is effectively an aircon unit, where there's no battery, there's no electricity, and you basically just stand it on a table, and it then changes the temperature of the air all around it. And the reason why he's able to devise that solution is because he understands, because of his true concept of the atom, he understands exactly what affects the temperature of air. And it's all about the pressure conditions and the spin within that air molecule or air particle. So that's not built yet, but we are basically funding it right now. If anyone's interested to get involved in it, it's going to be, you know, a bit of a groundbreaker when we get it right. So that's just an example of how we can improve current systems, which most people are programmed to believe can only ever run on a cable running into a plug, running into an electrical grid. So we're gonna prove that we can introduce that new solution, which changes everyone's understanding of what energy truly is.
That's so awesome. That's incredible. It's literally like the breakthrough that we need. We know it exists within the programs. You know, we know certain the governments and stuff or have utilized and discovered this technology decades ago, and unfortunately, it's taken this long for it to start coming forward on the surface level. But I think it's time, like Aaron and I were talking before this, it's time, like there's certain things that are happening outside of our awareness that are allowing for this type of information to come forward now without being suppressed so harshly like it has been for ages. So it's such an exciting.
I feel like we've got backup this time. I feel like, you know, we've got support. That you know, this is our time to come forward and shine, and it's thanks to shows like yours that we can get this information out. And once it drops into people's hearts and hearts connect, I think there's going to be a real solid network of progress. So, you know, we've got too many things to do, but one of the things that we wanted to do was create a membership site where Laki teaches everyone to use this Deca technology and also use the 7 steps of creation that Tesla was famous for in terms of the way that he manifested stuff, because his output was enormous, right? His output, what he invented and patented. But the reason is because he connected with spirit. And so, so Laki wants to teach people how to do that so that we can kind of open source that. And everyone can start creating this new era of energy. Because if it's true that these Deca are everywhere and can be seen, or we can be trained to see them, capture them, use them, and then deploy them into new energy solutions, then gone are the days where we have to ask corporations nicely to do what we want them to do.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, I mean, there you go. I hope that doesn't get me into too much trouble, but like I said, we got backup around us now. You know, this is almost like, you know, I hate to use phrases like this just in case it turns people off, but it's almost like God's will. You know, this is I feel this is the time for all of this to happen.
Absolutely.
I totally agree.
There's Laki doesn't happen to resemble Tesla at all, does he? He's not like a reincarnation of him.
Well, I mean, they're both Serbian. So Laki is Serbian. Yeah, I mean, there's no physical resemblance at all. Laki's about 5'9". I think Tesla was like up here. So I mentioned that Laki had a spiritual awakening, and that allowed him to talk to the spiritual realms, and that includes the angelic realms, but also the spirit of Tesla. So he was able to engage with Tesla and understand, you know, what his methodology is. And we just did a video on that on my YouTube channel called Omnia Balance, where people can check out how, you know, some of the secrets to Tesla's creation that I don't think anyone else knows. So so that's interesting for those people who want to deep dive into the quantum physics side of things. Yeah,
that's so cool. Yeah, I just subscribed recently to your channel. It just happened to pop up on my algorithm, so that was.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I mean,
we're
not by
not being censored.
not by well, we are, but I
There we
think
are.
like you said, we're getting help too, and it's just like it just depends on
Yeah.
if we're meant to if we're meant to see something, it's going to get to us,
Yeah.
or
100%.
or
Yeah.
discover something or whatever it is. As long as we're doing the inner work too and staying in alignment, because if you're out there being a shitty person, then obviously that's not going to work for you.
No, for sure. For sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, I mean, you get what you give, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you guys have how long has this website been operational now?
Well, probably just over a year. It's been quite slow going. Certainly 99.9% of the population are a bit resistant to the idea that phones could possibly be doing them harm, because they don't want to hear that, right? I mean, everyone's quite attached to their phone. Secondly, it's not the easiest conversation to have. It's like explaining to people how the phone industry has got this wrong, is a long conversation, which we've just had the luxury of going through. And you've listened to it, and I don't often get an hour to tell people, and certainly attention spans are very low these days. So but with 5G coming up, lots of people are just intuitively coming up to me and saying, tell me more about that stuff you do,
Yeah.
because they know what's in the pipeline, right? They're nervous for a reason. We all know the famous Blumenthal speech in front of Congress or whatever it was, where he questioned all of the big telcos and said, so how much money have you spent on safety testing, even though we know that the safety testing is slightly bogus? And they said $0, and if people aren't smelling rats, then they really are fast asleep. And those people, I fear for them, because this is a time to be educated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aware.
I think I like how you said that if they're not smelling rats or fast asleep. It's true. I just recently on Monday night, I told you I went to a local meetup here in St. Louis, and there's three women talking about the dangers of 5G, and I was totally surprised to hear them adding the spiritual aspect to their solution.
Right.
And they're definitely on the right path, and it's so refreshing. It's happening. It's trickling. People are getting concerned. People are demanding answers, because it's just not like you said. It's people are having symptoms. She was describing all different testimonials of people who've had illnesses and diseases, and somebody who got testicular cancer from keeping their cell phone in their pocket. And but we don't ever relate it to the cell phone. We try and find another reason why it might happen, and we're just throwing pills.
Well, I mean, look, we're completely disconnected. A lot of people are completely disconnected with what's going on in their body. I mentioned that we don't notice our fingernails growing, and EHS, or electromagnetically hypersensitive people, it must be absolute hell for them. But they're the people telling us what's coming. They're the ones that are tuning into their bodies and able to see the damage and the danger. I mean, I always liken it to the fact that you could smoke cigarettes for 30 years, but we've all seen a smoker's lungs, right? After 30 years goes black, right? Well, exactly the same thing's happening with phone radiation. You're putting toxins into your body, and your body is eventually just going to go, I can't do this anymore, right? But it's not going to be straight away. But with 5G, it is going to, it's going to, like, say it was going to come to you in 20 years. With 5G, it just comes shorter and shorter, right? That's what we need to get into our minds, is that our bodies don't pick stuff up immediately. They are incredibly resilient. you know, this amazing piece of technology that we have can resist an awful lot of stuff. But, you know, now is the time to get educated and prevent, so that there's nothing to have to cure, because you know that curing is going to be horrific. You know, like once you've got something like a cancer or something like that, it is so difficult to reverse it and bring yourself back to balance. But it can be done, as I think, you know, many people on your show will know, or audience will know. You can transmute energy that spins out of balance back into energy that spins in balance, right? And that's the key message that we've got for you today, is that with the help of the DECA technology, plus, you know, dialing into use the 7 Tesla steps to creation, a combination of those two things, and understanding exactly what it is in a radiation field that needs to be corrected, has allowed us to transmute a radiation field on a phone into something that turns water into crystals, right? So, you know, very, very weird analogy, but I can turn a frown into a smile, right?
Yeah.
I have that ability as a mental being. That was energy, what you just saw there. It was a transmutation of energy, right? I'm not saying it's as easy to do that with a radiation field and to make it into something positive, but it can be done. If you look at everything in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, right?
Yeah.
So with that new physics platform and new understanding of the atom and everything else, there's so many possibilities that are open to us, in healing, in, you know, energy solutions, in, you know, in just basically living in balance with Mother Earth.
Which is, which is where we all need to get back to.
Oh, and another thing, you mentioned fertility there, which is, or testicular cancer, I think it was. I was at a meeting a couple of weeks ago where all the biologists were telling us what they found. And one guy was talking about fertility, and he had a research group of, I think, 16 to 25-year-olds, and he said that 61% of them were infertile.
Wow.
So it's time to, yeah, I mean, this is the gaming generation, right? That holds things in their laps and puts it in a pocket, and they just, no one knows yet. No one knows yet. Right?
Yeah.
It's like making me think of it. Where am I going to carry my cell phone now? You know.
Right.
Yeah.
In a lead briefcase.
Well, just get the patch and you're good, man.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say just get the patch and you're good. I would obviously back my product to the hilt. We've tested it, you know, in many ways, but, you know, especially with 5G coming along, you should still turn it off at night. You should still get it out of your pocket in a meeting.
Yeah.
Just put it away from you, because, you know, when it's in your pocket, it's right next to, you know, the important organ. You know, it's, you know, just be aware, be, you know, own that situation. You've got to own the situation.
Yeah. So we still need to be conscious of what we're being exposed to, even with that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't suggest that people don't put something around their neck or something like that as well as what we're doing, you know, because what we're doing treats the radiation field. It would do no harm for you to do something that treats the human body as well. But I would say that treating the radiation field is much more effective. And the only reason I'd say that is because everyone's body is different, right?
Yeah.
So just putting a crystal around your neck and going, that's the solution. Well, there's different body masses and, well, whatever, you know, people are,
blood types,
blood sugar, blood types, everything, you know. Just asking one pendant to correct all of that when you're, you know, mainlining all of this toxicity into your body. I just think that's the harder thing to do.
What if we just put these patches directly on the towers?
Yeah. So obviously they're not our property, right? So we could never advise any of that stuff. But I'm not going to talk too much about that. But we do have some really exciting stuff to talk to about, but it's for investors. And the reason is because we need a little bit of funding in order to do something that could make a big difference to all of the imbalanced radiation that's being sent out. So I'm sorry to have to be cryptic on that, but
it's no problem.
Basically, if someone's interested, then I'm sure you can give them my email address, or I can just say it here, which is hello@omniabalance.life. And if you shoot me an email, I can explain a bit more about that.
Yeah, we'll include that. We'll include that in the description, along with a link to the website where anybody can purchase any of these patches if they feel compelled to. So I forgot where I was going to go after the tower. Oh, so there's actually a website. I can't. It slips me. I just learned about it on Monday night. It's antenna.net or something. I'll find it and we'll put that in the description. Also, you can type in your address and it'll tell you exactly how many cell phone towers and antennas are within a 2-mile radius of your home. And one of the ladies did it, and she's like, "Oh wow, I have 12 cell phone towers and 14 antennas within 2 miles of my house." And the lady who's presenting, she's like, "Oh, that's all." She's like, "That's all." She goes, "Yeah, if you live in like a city or like," cause she lived out in an area called Wildwood. It's not really near a lot of businesses.
Way out in the suburbs.
Yeah, way out in the suburbs. So if you live somewhere like I do, actually in the middle of a lot of stuff, I'm afraid to even type my address in because I can just look around and count, and who knows the amount that are actually in this area. And that's the scary thing because they're just popping up everywhere. Like I'll be driving and I'm like, when did that even get installed? It doesn't.
Did we ask for it? No. And is it tested? No.
Yeah.
And is it a conspiracy? Well, people are going to have to make their minds up on that. But I often tell a story about here in London. I went just up the road, and they're popping up in London all over the place, all the 5G towers, and obviously there's big marketing push for 5G phones as well. Mm-hmm. But I went down the road because I play a bit of music, and I asked if I could play in this local college hall, and they said, "Yeah, sure, it will be £50 an hour, and could you fill in this 10-page health and safety document?" And I was like, "Geez, my music isn't that bad, 10 pages of health and safety stuff just for playing music in a local hall, right?"
Yeah.
And how much health and safety documentation have we got for a multi-trillion-dollar network, which is radiating at us, and if nothing else, is an electrical hazard, right? As in, if it bursts into flames or something like that, but there's nothing at all. No safety concerns. No, like I said, they just do that test on the plastic skin with the fake blood in the middle, and that's it. That's the case closed. We won't listen to anything else because it's a conspiracy theory. And what I've noticed just in the last week is in two very high profile media outlet, I'll just call them out, the Times and the Spectator, have both started labeling anyone who opposes 5G as a conspiracy theorist. Wow. Who doesn't know the facts, who are just raising undue alarm, and they're doing that whole corporate propaganda thing, right?
Yeah.
So we got to be wary of this. Only the people that are awake and take action to harmonize all these frequencies are actually going to get through it. It could be that bad, but all of us have got to go out and start saying that this is not what we asked for. We didn't consent to this. It is against the Nuremberg Code, if you know what that is. The Nuremberg Code is basically saying that you are not allowed to experiment on humanity without their consent, with any technology, any even any vaccine or anything like that, you know, you have to get their consent before they do it. And in this instance, they've breached the Nuremberg Code. It is illegal what they're doing.
I think that's been breached forever.
Yeah, I would say.
They were probably laughing when they signed that. Like,
Yeah.
This is just
well, they really think we're going to stick to this. Yeah,
this is just one of the more obvious things, I would say, with that. Do you know who Sasha Stone is by chance?
He's I do know Sasha. Yeah. Well, yeah, he lives in Bali a lot. He's done a couple of events here in the UK.
Yeah, I just saw him at Dimensions of Disclosure, which is a big conference close to LA recently, and he was talking a lot about 5G, and he's doing a lot of work to bring awareness about 5G and the harm of it.
He's doing a great service to raise awareness of 5G. My only piece of personal feedback on the way he's doing it is that he's raising alarm at a slightly unnecessary level.
Yeah, I can see that.
You could say that's what's required, but I also feel that not enough is being done to get the more kind of scared people to come forward, right? Because if there are people out there that are scared, you're not going to interest them with a fear message, right? You've got to bring them through to say, look, you can be a hero too and help everyone around you, right? Just appeal to people to say, come and really help, you know, rather than they're going to kill us and it's, you know, Armageddon and extinction level events and this, that, and the other. I just think that's the wrong energy. That's my own personal opinion, because there's too many people out there that will be scared away from that. And we need to include everyone. And the energy that includes everyone is the energy that says, listen, you know, as human beings, let's stand up for each other.
Like, we're not helpless in this situation. We've
got amazing power.
About it.
Right.
Yeah.
We can invent our way out of this just like that, right?
Yeah.
We really can. And Laki's showing us that we can do that, right? And to think of ourselves just as victims who are just like literally like, oh my God, you know, there's nothing we can do. There's a big bad wolf breathing, you know, fire down us. It's not right. It's not true. You know, we've got to somehow, you know, stir that whole inner power and step forward into that power, into that light, and be, you know,
take our power back.
Yeah.
That's what's happening right now. Is slowly humanity, we're waking up and taking our power back that we've been giving away for so long. And
if you like, sorry to interrupt, but what's happening is there's an awareness that humanity's doing that, and it's literally like over the fence, you know, while we're doing it, you know. It's like, oh, you think you're going to do this? Well, take some of this while you know, see how you get on with this, you know.
It's like they know the awakening's happening, so they're really turning up the heat on the kind of control systems and all that. And I think 5G is a big part of that. And I feel like it's kind of backfiring, because the more blatant they get with this kind of stuff, the quicker humanity is going to wake up, because it's kind of like snapping people out of their sleep. Oh, look at this craziness that's happening. That's not right. There's some, you know, it's kind of waking people up faster in that way.
Well, I hope so, but we still really need to, you know, through programs like yours and shows like yours, we really, really need to spread awareness. There's a lot of people that are literally frozen in the headlights right now. And we need to help them to just say, look, we've got you, but you just got to understand this.
It's a matter of not staying stuck in fear of it, but realizing we have power.
Absolutely. Helping them out of that fear and into the power. Right. That's really, really important. So I think if anyone's listening to this in any doubt as to where you should be mentally, energetically, and everything else, is absolutely in steadfast resolution against this, but not in fear. You know, just standing in your power, knowing that you know, we as a collective force, we reject this. Right. It's really important to understand that human thoughts are energy too, and that energy as soon as it tips towards the fear vibration, is tipping towards imbalance, right?
It's so interesting. Sorry, you can keep guiding me and interrupt you. It's interesting you say that, because somebody commented at that meeting on Monday night, and he said, if enough of us got together, we could fix this problem just with our intention alone within a few minutes. If the whole world was just to happen to have the intention of wiping this out this grid. Just to piggyback off of what you were saying, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Well, that's a really good point, because actually, I had exactly that thought after, because I made an appearance on Josh Del Sol's 5G crisis event, right? But the energy of that was all, and the language was all crisis, which it is, right? There's no getting away from that. But I just wondered after the show whether, if energy, a same amount of energy was put into revealing all of the bad things, that we actually said, hey, hold on, start of every call, let's just say a little, 1 minute resolution, which is that, I stand here in my power as a human being, and I reject absolutely the imposition of anything that is not in my highest interest and, resonates with me at the highest level. And you just, I could write something better than that, you know what I mean? But, everyone waking up every morning and saying that, yeah, absolutely, be over like that, all the people in the, it would wake up all the people in the councils and whatever, because right now, what's happening is there's just a wall of paid people, right, who have families to support and don't actually know what the problem is, and can't be bothered to work out what the truth is. There's a load of paid people shoveling a load of rubbish down at people who are complaining, right? So people who in the UK, people who go up to their councils and say, you haven't safety tested this, you haven't done this, we reject it. They just pull out this standard statement that says ICNIRP has decided that it's okay. And there you go. And that's the end of it. And the people that do that are normal human beings like me and you. They're not bad people. They're just doing their job, and they don't care enough about it because they've never really thought about it. But I think if we all started to say that kind of strong mantra, and I'd do a much better job of what I just said there if I just, go away and think about it. But if we all just wrote out that mantra and said it every morning, those people in the middle would be waking up, and that army of heroes would be coming through and saying, well, actually, hold on, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This can't be right. And I did see this show the other day showing how we're electrical beings, and how when the electricity in the radiation field meets the electrical field of our body reacts. And that makes sense to me. And no, I'm not having that. I'm not having it.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. That's where we need to get to, rather than Armageddon, whatever. That I totally agree with whoever it was that was at that meeting.
It was so awesome to say that. Yeah. And and then their actual final message for everybody before we left was we need to spread awareness. People are waking up. We need to start waking people up. And it was so cool to have them phrase it like that, because it's not just about the crisis, and they gave an actual spiritual solution, and it was really interesting. So awesome. It's definitely moving in a positive direction.
Wake up to our power. There you go.
Yeah.
The ultimate, the ultimate defense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I guess we'll start wrapping it up. Is there anything that your final messages? I know we got pretty deep there, but is there anything you wanted to touch on before we sign off here?
No, I think I've covered. I've talked a lot. Verbal diarrhea. No, look, just very. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and if anyone wants to contact me, then please feel free. This is a step into new science, but that's what we need right now. There is a filter in the science world, and the filter is applied because that filter sustains other solutions that don't really benefit us as well, and those are things like big pharma. If big pharma knows, big pharma, I'm not saying they do, but if the whole of the science world gives you one version of the human body, and that allows lots of drugs to be sold to you because no one knows any different, well, that situation is going to perpetuate. And if someone comes along and says, well, hold on, here's the new version of things, which means that we can take control of things ourselves, it's not going to be looked at with an open mind, put it that way. So I do meet lots of clever people who just put the barricades up straight away, and it tends to be the cleverer people that put the barricades up because they're the more programmed people. They're the more academic, and they've received more programming than your average person. It's interesting to see what happens with different people, but certainly the more intelligent people resist any influence.
And they got their ego tied up in that oh, I would know if that was true, like I'm a smart person, I already know the truth. And you got all that in there, and it's really hard to break through with people like that, because like you said, they put up this wall that they just won't even hear you out, because
absolutely.
Well, being self-aware as well as having awareness of your outside situation is vital at this time.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, with that, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Make everybody listening, make sure you check out his website, Omnia Radiation Balancer.com. We'll have the link on Facebook. We'll have it on YouTube. We'll have your email. We will have whatever other links we said we were going to throw in there. Whatever, pictures, all that stuff. Check it out, though. This is truly breakthrough technology that we're working with here. So I think it's going to impact a lot of people if they happen to stumble upon this podcast, or even your website or whatever. So thank you so much for coming on again.
Thanks so much.
This has been mind-blowing.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Aaron. Really, really appreciate it. And thanks for spreading the love.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, because we're being censored like you wouldn't imagine. So every like, every subscribe really does help us right now, because there's clearly an agenda taking place right now. So if you enjoy this at all, please feel free to just click subscribe. Alrighty. Well, good night, guys, and thanks for listening. Thanks for coming on, Tim, and we will be in touch very shortly.